Hey there, Smoke Master D coming at you with an examination of the solution offset smoker as it compares to Workhorse Pits. And here I have some chapter times for you. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And now we're going to start with price. The solution offset smoker comes in at the lowest at $2,499. In my last episode, I said that they were $2,500. I rounded up, but here I wanted to put the exact actual price. Now, Workhorse Pits, the 1969's base price is $2,775, and the 1975's base price is $3,243.95. I did not include the 1957 from Workhorse Pits. They're currently not offering it, so I thought, I'll just leave it out. All right, and here we see those prices visually. All right, and now let's talk a little bit about shipping. The solution offset is produced a little east of Dallas, Texas. Workhorse Pits are produced now in their new factory out of Cleveland, Georgia. Frank Cox tells me that shipping for the solution offset ranges from $379 to $799 with the liftgate service nationwide. Now, liftgate is needed, if you're at a residence, a house, and they have to get it off of the truck. If you're somewhere that has, a loading dock, it's going to be a lot cheaper because that liftgate does cost a good bit to do. Now, shipping to me on Workhorse Pit's new wood fire mercantile website was $396 for the 1969 and $429 for the 1975. I'm pretty close to Cleveland, Georgia. Even still, with these prices, it's hard to tell which has better shipping rates. What I can comment on, however, is the brackets the solution offset has innovated. You see them there. Apparently, they allow them to connect the smoker directly to the pallet, and then, of course, they ship the pallet. Frank Cox tells me that using this system, they have had no damage to their smokers in transit, which is fairly unheard of. You hear a lot about damage just in the normal shipping kind of ways that they do it. Though I really can't comment on Workhorse, how they fare in this department, except that their in-house delivery service was supposed to be better and cheaper than regular shipping. Their new website doesn't mention this service, though, so it's hard to tell the exact situation they're in right now. Now let's talk about grates. None of these smokers has a slide-out main grate. I also couldn't find pictures of the Workhorse Pits on their website without the upper level grate. We're mostly going to be talking about just the main grates because that is all that the solution offset currently offers. And here we see a visual representation of the amount of space each of these smokers has on that main grate. The solution offset, as you can see, falls almost exactly equally between the 1969 and the 1975 in terms of grate size, with 920 inches squared. Now, when we compare the price to the size of the main grate, it's not a surprise that the solution offset comes out the best here. Then you have the 1975, and lastly, the 1969, which is a lot more per square inch than the other two. Now, as for metal thickness, the solution offset is a 1/4 inch thick steel, whereas the Workhorse Pits, they use 3/8 inch thick steel. There's a debate back and forth about the pros and cons of using thicker steel and what is the appropriate thickness for the steel wall of the main chamber. 3/16 is like the lower range of what's considered as acceptable thickness, and 3/8 is about the thickest that is generally used. Now, if we restate a 1/4 inch as 2/8, we understand that the Workhorse's metal is 1/8 of an inch thicker, right? So 2/8, 3/8, 1/8 difference. How much better heat retention do you get for an eighth of an inch versus the extra weight of lifting the door? And the 1975's door is notoriously hard to lift among doors. And the weight of the entire smoker itself to move around, and the amount of time and heat energy to warm up all that extra metal to begin with. So as you can see, there's a bit of a debate. What's best? What's is that extra weight worth it? Is it not worth it? And different people have different opinions on the matter. So here on our weight chart, we see that the solution offset is 700 pounds, which is not light by any means. It's still a good hefty weight. The 1969 is 875 pounds, and the 1975 is close to 1,000 with that 975. And when we look at the dollar per pound, the Workhorse 1969 comes out the best, then the 1975, and then the solution offset. In fact, this chart is about the exact inverse of the dollar per square inch chart. So a large question in this debate between these two smoker builders is how important that extra metal thickness is. Right. The other really big question between the two is on performance. And the biggest factor there is how the air and heat flows through these smokers. Workhorse Pits uses what they call computational fluid dynamics. Workhorse is fairly secretive about what this actually entails. As far as I know, it's a trade secret rather than an actual patent of any kind. For instance, in all the Workhorse materials, they almost show nothing of their actual baffle plate. The picture there on the left comes from a video on their YouTube channel on cleaning the main chamber of their smokers. You would think on such a video that there would be a clear view of scraping under that plate or something like that, but no. That's the clearest view of their deflector plate in all their materials, and it's my opinion that when they made that video, they intentionally tried to show as little of the plate as possible. Now, over the years, I've picked up a few things on what Workhorse means by computational fluid dynamics, mostly from comments by their founder, JD. Apparently, it came about from computer modeling done at Georgia Tech in relation to NASCAR. Also, apparently, the angle of the deflector plate is particularly important. What that angle is seems like it would be very easy to measure on any of the pits that they have out there, but I don't know what that angle is. Nor do I know how important the relative relationship of where the plate is to the draw of the detector at the other end of the pit is to everything. How that angle relates to the size of the chamber or anything like that. This is to say that there's a lot that's not particularly clear about the performance of Workhorse Pits. They claim to have even temperatures across the main grate, give or take 5 degrees either way, but all of that can be influenced by how you run the pit, including your fire size and position of where the fire is, how you work your dampers. Users have reported a hot spot that can move depending on damper configuration, and also that Workhorse Pits seem to run with the most even temperatures at lower temps and with the stack damper closed down a good deal. And if you want to find out more about that, check out the Smoke Scouts YouTube page. Mike Rain kind of goes into detail on how all of that works. Now, the solution scoop baffle is a different beast altogether. If you want to hear more on scoop baffle offsets, you can check out my barbecue buyer's guide to scoop baffle offsets linked above that I recently put out. This particular scoop baffle is a half moon piece of metal with 5 holes in it so that there's still convective heat right next to the baffle plate, which in other scoop baffles, sort of a dead zone because the heat's going straight up and across there. And so that will cut off only about a couple inches of unusable grate space where that heat is coming straight up. You can't see it very well, but there are actually little feet welded onto the plate so that it can stay standing up straight. The majority of the heat goes straight to the top of the chamber and filters down from the top as it cools, moving across the top of the chamber. Since the rate of cooling and filtering down will be consistent as it moves across, creates a fairly even temperature across that grate. So both of these smokers can create fairly even temperatures across the grates, but they do it in very different ways, and it might, and I say might, be easier to accomplish with the solution offset. Now moving on, for the back door, the solution offset uses a notch system to regulate air intake on the firebox, whereas the Workhorse Pits has a bow tie damper, but a lot of its owners use their door for intake as well, just cracking it open as much as they want, but they don't have the notches there for comparison or for exact placement. Now, on these next couple of slides, we're going to be talking about things that Workhorse Pits offers that the solution offset doesn't. Will the solution offset ever offer these options in the future? Who knows? Maybe. Right now, they seem to be getting a lot of mileage out of selling only what you need and nothing that you don't. But anyway, it's with great happiness that I can report that Workhorse Pits is now offering a counterweight for their 1975. Their website doesn't give it as an option for the 1969, nor in combination with the wagon package for the 1975, which is something I don't quite understand, but something is better than nothing. For the moment, it seems that they have discontinued their smart shelf, which I never particularly cared for. One question I have posed to myself is whether now that they've offered the counterweight, whether or not they might offer a shelf actually at the door to the chamber. And one of the main issues they might have had, if they ever did offer that shelf by the main chamber, is that the door to their smoker is so heavy that reaching over the shelf to then lift such a heavy door wouldn't have worked very well. If the door is easier to open, suddenly maybe they can have a shelf there. At any rate, the counterweight is currently a $200 add-on for the stock 1975, and their trailer 1975 also has the option. Another option available to the Workhorse, but not on the solution, is, air quotes, the fully loaded option. Previously, you could add on the second shelf and a grill in the firebox separately. Now they are bundled together exclusively. For the 1975, it's an extra $304.81. For the 1969, it's an extra $625.74. Why is it more than twice as much to get the fully loaded option on the 1969? I have no idea. But Jeremy Yoder, in a video on the Patreon page from which he sells the solution offset, explains that he didn't want to offer these options on the solution because, number one, second level grates don't cook at the same temperature and in the same way as the main grate, and aren't really used in barbecue restaurants at all. And number two, grilling in the firebox is suboptimal, in part because the grate is so much lower than you are. And so Jeremy kind of says, you're better off just getting a charcoal grill like a Weber kettle in addition and having them separate. Now, I must say from my own experience that I have a second level grate and a grill in my firebox in my offset smoker, and that I almost never use either of them. However, I really do like having the door on top of my firebox because it makes cleaning the thing out so much easier. So take that as you will. I might mention, however, that Workhorse sells a 24-inch scraper that will help you clean out your 1975 firebox without that top door. And guess what? I bet you could use it on the solution offset too. At just $39 plus shipping, which turned out to be about $50 for me, it could be a good purchase. Now, the Workhorse Pits comes with a linseed oil finish that you need to refresh every once in a while, and their YouTube channel gives instructions on how to do that. The solution offset, however, comes raw, and you have to apply your own oil to protect the metal. The picture on the left is Jeremy Yoder, spraying Pam on his solution offset in order to season it. Since you have to season the insides of these smokers anyway, maybe seasoning the outside isn't such a big deal. I will say, however, that the metal parts that aren't part of the chambers will need another heat source if you are using most kinds of food-safe oils for seasoning, like the Pam in the video. That means you have to get out a torch and heat up those parts to get them seasoned. You don't have to do this, however, on the Workhorse Pits. And another thing to note is that boiled linseed oil already has those protective double bonds and will harden without you heating it up, which is something I didn't know when I applied linseed oil to my offset smoker the first time I did it. So if you do get the solution offset, even if you use food-safe oils like Pam on the inside and the outside of the chamber, it might be worth your while to use linseed oil on the supporting legs and wood rack, just because you wouldn't have to get a torch then to make it adhere. All right, and now here we come to the lead time. Workhorse Pits should be congratulated on how much better their lead time appears to be now. It used to be 10 months, sometimes even over a year in some situations. The day that I'm making this video is May 4th. Happy Star Wars Day, by the way. And the website says the Pits order today will be available after June 12th. That's about 6 weeks. It's near about the same for the solution offset. Workhorse's bid to up their production and shrink their lead time by building a new facility seems to have paid off for customers hoping to get their pit sooner. They aren't at a huge disadvantage anymore to other makers like the solution offset in this regard. And now I've covered everything that I wanted to cover as far as the features and how they compare, and it's time for my thoughts. I like all three of these offset smokers. I feel a slight bias towards the solution offset right now, but I can't tell whether that's just because it's new and exciting or not. I think Workhorse has built up its brand and reputation in the barbecue world, so I don't see them going away anytime soon. The solution offset is establishing itself right now. It is more affordable than the Workhorse Pits, so it has that going for it. But if I had the money for the stock 1975 or the solution offset, I'm not really sure which direction I would go in. There's a lot of, community around Workhorse Pits. They have Facebook pages and everything. But, Jeremy Yoder being behind the solution, a big community, I think, is springing up around it as well. So I think they're both going to have that. I don't think there's any world in which I would get the Workhorse 1969 over the solution offset, but I have been a longtime fan of the 1975, and I know that it's a really good offset, so I don't know which way I would go between the two. The 75 is larger, and I like larger, but as for usable space, you can shrink down that hot spot, but I don't know. And that's why those are my thoughts, and you have your own thoughts. Which do you prefer? Feel free to tell me down in the comments below with your own thoughts. Of course, if you own any of these smokers, leave a review in the comments as well. Thanks for coming along on this little analysis between these offsets. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and as always, go get your smoke on, y'all.